about today's argument.
Could I ask you guys, please? We're doing this here. Just either go there or wait, and we'll come to you in a minute, okay?
You're here.
So, there are three telling things about today's argument. First, right out of the box, several justices expressed serious concerns about the civil liberties impacts of SB 1070. And as a result of those serious civil liberties impacts, the state of Arizona has had to narrow its position substantially and is now defending SB 1070 merely as a provision for notification of the federal government. But that's not actually what SB 1070 does, and I think that's clear from the face of the statute, as well as from everything that we heard today. It became clear through the course of today's argument that the justices are concerned about a system of mass incarceration that's going to catch U.S. citizens and immigrants who are lawfully in the United States. It became clear today during the argument that there is no federal system that would readily clear United States citizens who are stopped during a traffic violation and will be held at the side of the road for an hour or more while they're asked to prove their right to be in their own country. And I think that the court will ultimately realize that and strike down this law. Sure, Cecilia Wong, CECILLIA. WANG. I'm the director of the ACLU Immigrants' Rights Project.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Maria Elena Incapié. I'm the executive director of the National Immigration Law Center, also amicus in this case, along with the ACLU and a broad coalition of civil rights organizations. We are also the co-lead counsel in the class action lawsuit that we filed against Arizona's SB 1070, which, in addition to raising the preemption claims, we are also arguing that SB 1070 violates the First and Fourth Amendment claims, equal protection, and due process claims. These claims were not before the Supreme Court today. However, it was very clear that the justices were concerned about the impact that this would have on U.S. citizens, whether in fact there were any government databases with the inaccuracies that exist today would not be able to clear a U.S. citizen up and they would be detained. The justices also were very concerned about the impact this would have on a citizen from New Mexico who's driving using a New Mexican driver's license and traveling through Arizona, and the impact on that individual. They understood the complexities of what it means for a person who is brown to go out jogging in Arizona without an ID, and whether that person would also be stopped and detained. And we are very confident that the decision that ultimately will come out from the Supreme Court will hopefully be a narrowly focused decision and will allow us to go back to court and continue filing and litigating our case, and eventually that SB 1070 will be struck down as unconstitutional based on all of our other constitutional claims, because it is an un-American statute. It is a statute that's resulting today in racial profiling. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have three congressmen from Arizona coming up next.
Chris Kobach, Secretary of State of Kansas. My name is Chris Kobach. I'm the Secretary of State of Kansas, and along with Russell Pierce, co-authored this law. I think what you saw today was the result of a very bad decision by the Justice Department. When the decision was made to sue Arizona for passing a statute that simply attempts to help the federal government enforce federal law and mirrors the terms of federal law, the federal government did an unprecedented thing. Never before in the history of the United States has the Department of Justice sued a state for trying to assist the federal government. Never before. And in making that ill-fated decision, the Justice Department ran into the wall that we saw today. Solicitor General Verrilli was on the ropes for most of that argument, and the reason he was on the ropes for that argument was because he was asked by the justices, pointedly by Scalia multiple times, can you give me an example of where the federal government can preempt a state merely by refusing to enforce federal laws or by exercising prosecutorial discretion? And Verrilli had no answer to that question. There is no precedent. This is an unprecedented lawsuit brought by the Justice Department. The Justice Department's answers today were very inadequate to the questions asked, and ultimately they fell back to their last-ditch argument, which was that if the government of Mexico doesn't like this law, then maybe that should weigh against it and cause it to be preempted. It was a bad day for the Justice Department, and I think that's appropriate because they took an action that they never should have taken, suing under this law. And when we drafted this law, we drafted it so that it mirrored precisely the terms of federal law. And that is important because conflict preemption, which was the issue before the court today, asks if there is a conflict between federal law and state law. The state law here was drafted so that it uses the exact words, the exact phrases of federal law and merely mirrors federal law. There's no way that the arrest provisions of the Arizona law are going to be preempted, I believe, after watching that oral argument. I think the other provisions of the Arizona law, which less time was spent talking about, are also on secure ground as well. So it was a good day for Arizona, it was a good day for the U.S. Constitution, and a very bad day for the administration.
You know, folks, thank you very, very much. Congressman Paul Gosar from Northern Arizona. First of all, I want to applaud the Team Arizona, led by our quarterback, Governor Jan Brewer, and Chris Kobach for what he has actually put together in the state Senate. This shows a team effort in regards to identifying the problem and coming up with a solution. What we have to look at is we're tired of the scare techniques, and I think America resonates that. More than two out of every 3 Americans actually endorse Arizona's immigration law, and we saw that aspect today. But we also see bad behavior from the Department of Justice, and I hope America oversees and holds them accountable in regards to that. But today is a good day for Arizona and a good day for the Constitution. I'd also like to introduce 2 of my colleagues, David Schweikert and Ben Quayle, in which I'll take the podium and then we'll take some questions.
It's, you know, having actually been in the state legislature, been the treasurer of Maricopa County, this is not a new battle for Arizona. What is new is the absurdity of many of those who are opposing it and what they're willing to say. Think of that. Just a couple moments ago, you had someone in opposition standing behind these microphones who claims to be a lawyer, literally making up a scenario that could not happen under this law. If, you know, it is just one of my great frustrations is as we watch the political theater, desperately hoping that the court actually hears the facts and the reality that Arizona is following the very law given to it by Congress. And I believe the court will actually uphold Arizona and therefore uphold the Constitution and uphold the citizens' rights of Arizona. So thank you, and here's my friend Ben Quayle.
Thank you very much. The one thing that I'm looking forward to is I know that the Supreme Court will actually read the law before actually passing judgment. As we saw in the beginning of this process when SB 1070 was passed out of the state legislature and signed into law by the governor, Eric Holder came out against it, Secretary Napolitano came out against it, but when asked if they actually read the law, they said no. And so there's been a lot of disinformation and misinformation that has been put forth on this law, and it merely allows the state and local authorities to enforce federal law. The federal government and this administration should be embracing that cooperation. We at the federal level, the state level, and the local level should all be working in tandem to enforce federal law, and that's what this allows us to do. And I think that the Supreme Court will uphold the law and find it constitutional. So thank you very much.
Any questions for anybody?
I do want to take just a second, and answer any questions you have, but I want to tell you, 1070 is a codification of states' rights and the United States Constitution.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Russell Pierce. I'm the guy that wrote SB 1070. I have filed an amicus brief with the court also in support of SB 1070. I was very gratified with the court today and the responses. I thought the justices clearly had a handle on the issues and clearly understood that the Obama Justice Administration was overreaching. There's never been a preemption on the states to enforce these laws. Telephone calls is most of what we're talking about. Enforce the law. Arizona has a direct responsibility to its citizens to enforce the law, whether the federal government likes it or not. And I thought they made that clear.
Is there anything that the justices said that?
Well, I thought they said a lot of things. Even Justice Sotomayor made it clear, everything but rolling the eyes on a couple of the comments by the Justice Department. It was clear that they thought the Justice Department was overreaching and that the preemption was never there. That, and some of the stories they used I thought were very clever that Scalia used in his analogy. So again, I was very gratified. I thought they had a handle. I thought it was a clear victory. I think we'll win a minimum of a 5-3 and maybe even greater on some of the issues. Yeah, because that's been their political sound bites. It's not true, never was true. They know that. That's why they didn't raise it. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, folks. Thanks for coming. I know it's a great day. The weather's great.
Briefly.
I'm Tom Fitton. I'm president of Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch is a public interest group. We filed 2 amicus briefs, one on behalf of Russell Pierce, the author of SB 1070, former state Senate president. The second brief was on behalf of state legislators from 20 states who wanted their voices heard in support of SB 1070. It's clear to us that the court hearing went very well. It looks like to us the majority of the court will uphold key provisions of SB 1070. The Obama administration has run away from its earlier incendiary rhetoric suggesting that this was about racial profiling. It's clear to me that this is a political lawsuit, that the administration thinks that this law, SB 1070, conflicts with its political priorities and there should be thrown out by the courts. But that's not the way our Constitution works. It's not the way our federal system works. And the court, it's clear, including some of Obama's own appointees, will rule in favor of SB 1070, at least key provisions of it.